Good evening, everyone. We are going to wait a couple more moments to allow people time to get into the room. Super excited to have you all here tonight for what I hope will be an update on the progress over the last 6 months of my time in office, as well as being able to answer any questions from you all. We'll wait a couple more minutes here. I know that we had a few folks RSVP, and we definitely want to be mindful of allowing them time to get into the room, but we also want to be timely and respect your time this evening. So know that we will not go past 7. If we end a little bit earlier and we give you the gift of time back in your day, that's okay too. But if you are up for it, why don't you go ahead and enter into the chat your name and what neighborhood you live in. If you do not live in District 1, that's totally fine. We're excited to have you. Maybe you'll hear some updates that pertain to the neighborhood that you're living in. But if you can hear me, go ahead and put in the chat your name and what neighborhood you live in. We have a few more folks joining the room. So as you all are joining the room, welcome again. Super excited to have you. We're going to wait about another minute or so before we kick off. We are asking folks that as we are waiting, that you hop in the chat with your first name and what neighborhood in District 1 you live in. So I know that Jane has already kicked us off. Jane with East Front Neighborhood, welcome. Super excited to have you. We also have Natalie Merton with Rockwood. I love that. So thank you for being here as well, Natalie. Good to have you all on. Again, we'll wait about another 45 seconds. Holly with Central Northeast, welcome. Excited to have you. We also have Zamaria Ball, who is our community services representative for District 1 on the call. She is in the background listening in, taking notes. So if there are some to-dos or marching orders following this meeting, she'll ensure that I get on top of that. Again, welcome. Super excited to have you all as we're waiting for a few more folks to join in on the conversation. We want to make sure that we give everyone an opportunity to get logged in, but also be respectful of your time. Also, know the USA team is playing in the FIFA World Cup today, too. So, if you are looking forward to watching that game, we'll make sure that we don't keep you too long so you can cheer for Team USA tonight. We'll get about another 30 seconds. And before we start, I will warn you that once we get ready to start, we will hit the record button. Do not be alarmed. We are going to record, particularly through the updates that I'm going to provide, and we'll turn it off as we near the end of our video, and we'll keep it on for the first half of Q&A. But if there are folks who maybe don't feel comfortable asking their questions out loud while being recorded, we totally understand that. So we will allot for some time to stop the recording and then stay on a little bit longer so that everyone feels comfortable asking whatever questions that you have. Okay. I am getting the cue from Zamaria to make sure I hit the record button. So we are going to go ahead and do that at this time. Oh, it's already recording actually. So good thing we did not say anything wild. We'll go ahead and get started as folks are joining in. We will let them join in, but if not, we'll go ahead and get started. No need for you all to turn on your cameras. Again, we want to make sure that this is a comfortable environment for you. And as a reminder, a refresher, the reason why we're doing this is we didn't have any agenda items for our district advisory board meeting this month. For those familiar with the District Advisory Board, we typically have zoning cases, updates from several departments within the city of Wichita that come forward to provide us updates on what is happening in their specific area as it relates to District 1, that being Park and Rec, the Wichita Police Department, Wichita Libraries, as well as Wichita firefighters. We also have room in our agenda for anybody in the public to come forward who may want to bring something to the attention of the District Advisory Board that they want the council member to carry forward. This month, we did not have any agenda items. And so, because we know how important it is to be respectful of everyone's time, we didn't want to have you all come in person to the Atwater Neighborhood Center, but I always believe that we can make a good use of time, even if briefly. And that is why I wanted to provide you with an update of what life has looked like for District 1 over the past 6 months since I've been sworn in and had the opportunity to represent you. I do want to just level set here. Again, what will happen is I'll give a brief overview of some updates. We'll open up the floor for any questions that you all have, and I hope to spend the majority of the time answering any questions you all have. And then from there, for folks who don't feel comfortable asking questions while being recorded, we will stop the recording and then we'll stay back a little bit longer so you can ask those questions. Let me dive in by saying the first 6 months of my time on city council has been focused on what I campaigned on, which was basically kitchen table issues. I really wanted to focus on economic advancement, making sure that there was equitable and ethical economic investment across all of District 1, and particularly in parts of our community that have not seen that distribution of economic advancement equitably over the past decades, but also making sure that we're focusing on strengthening our neighborhoods. I believe that our neighborhoods are the backbone of our entire city. And so, as our world continues to evolve, what does it look like to ensure that the people in our neighborhoods feel that they have a direct link to their representative, that they feel that they have someone in office who, when they see a problem, they can report it and it will be fixed. And then also making sure that they can build their neighborhood association, and that neighborhood association serves as the first line of defense in terms of what they want to see in their neighborhoods, what they don't want to see in their neighborhoods, addressing the issues and challenges in their neighborhoods, but also the opportunities. And then finally, focusing on building that trust and transparency, which we have heard over the past couple of decades in the city of Wichita has been a challenge. And I'm particularly interested in building that trust and transparency through stronger communication. Hence, our reason for this town hall, another mechanism for you all to hear what's going on. Here's District 1 at a glance. Our district is about 65,000 constituents, and it is growing every day. We have roughly around 21 neighborhoods. And again, the reporting period that I'm sharing with you all tonight is from the time that I've been sworn in, January to June of 2026. And again, focusing on those key issues that I just referred to. But for tonight, I'm going to break it down in a couple of segments. First, I want to talk about public safety. Next, I want to give you some updates on public works and infrastructure. I want to talk to you all about major council actions that have taken place from January to June. And then I also want to end by talking about, as we look ahead, what does it look like from July to December as we round out this calendar year and head into 2027? I'm going to preface by saying that there's a ton that goes on in City Hall every day. So the things that you're going to hear are very, very high level. But if there are particular things you are curious about, please feel free to reach out during that question and answer period. And I'd be happy to either tell you I don't have an answer for you, but I'll find one out, or give you the answer to your question. So let's talk about public safety. Again, this is year to date, and this is crime through June 30th. So there's good news and there's not so good news as it relates to District 1. Our overall trends for crime as it relates to 2025 has gone down about 11% as we compare it to the 5-year average. Violent crime is down 8% year over year. It is down 10% below the 5-year average. That's good news. Now, property crime is also down 12% year over year and 20% down below the 5-year average. So what we know is that there have been a couple of investments in Wichita Police Department to get adequate staffing back up to the levels that it needs to. We still have some more work to do in that area. You all might recall the Jensen Hughes report, which was the study that the city of Wichita did specifically related to the Wichita Police Department, that did a holistic study on ways in which we could enhance the Wichita Police Department, not just in terms of FTEs or full-time employees or officers, but culture, morale, policies, protocol, and making sure that we have a healthy police department, one that and Holly, we are recording, so I'll try to slow down, but we are recording and we're happy to share that with you. but one that also ensured that we were honoring the lived experiences and dignity of community that did not have a strong relationship with the Wichita Police Department. Here are some of the categories that we are seeing improvement in as it relates to public safety. Um, we are we are seeing some improvements in aggravated assaults. That has gone down 13%. We're seeing improvements in burglary, which has gone down by 7%. We're seeing improvements in theft, which has gone down 10% year over year. And then motor vehicle theft down 22%. So we're seeing improvement in those areas. That's good news. I credit much of that work, not just to Wichita Police Department, but to you all, the neighbors who are educating and spreading awareness about ways to avoid becoming a victim of one of these crimes. But with all things, when there is good, there's also some opportunity for growth, and District 1 is not exempt from that. We have seen murders up uh, from three in last year to four of this year. There's no secret. We are in the middle of what I would call a crisis as it relates to gun violence and as it relates to violence in general. There are groups. One specifically that I'm thinking of is Cure Violence, who are mobilizing violence interrupters to look at how to be boots on the ground for those hot spots in our district, to engage and to intervene with individuals who uh, might commit a crime or they've caught in word will commit a crime. And the whole purpose is to make sure that they prevent the gun violence or violent crime from happening in general. I have seen the violence interrupters in action, both with in our neighborhoods and even with our kiddos in high school. They have partnered with local businesses even to have a strong presence in their business to prevent crime from happening. And yet we know that there's still more work to do. Here's where I need your help with murders that again are up from three to four, and rapes that are up from 28 to now 35, and robberies up from 41 to 49. And yes, Holly, in the last year, um, we need to make sure that we recognize that this is not just a Wichita Police Department problem. This is our problem too. This is our neighborhood. This is our district. And I know that this sounds so cliche, but when you see something, not just say something, um, but when you see something and you feel that you should probably call someone, you probably should. You should probably call the Wichita Police Department and let them know what you have seen. But I'll also tell you this, you'd be amazed at how likely someone is to deter from committing a crime if you simply take the time to talk to someone who may look like they're doing suspicious activity. Again, don't put yourself in harm's way, but build those relationships, especially with your neighbors, especially with your community. That is what's going to help ensure that we reduce some of the violent crime and crime that we see happening, not just across District 1, but in the city overall. I've been a strong proponent for prevention. I believe that it saves the taxpayer dollars when we invest in prevention and we get in front of the problem instead of investing on the back end. We know how problematic sometimes getting caught up in the criminal justice system can be. And I remain very concerned about that for people who find themselves in that situation. And so, one of the things that I've been working on with our police chief, Joe Sullivan, is called the focus deterrence model. The focus deterrence model is a model that is being used in Baltimore, Maryland. If you've not heard about the success that Baltimore, Maryland is having with particularly their gun violence, I encourage you to look it up. They use a focus deterrence model. What that model does is using data and information that WPD has, it looks at people who are likely to shoot or be shot, They then take that information and they work with their city council and mayor in Baltimore, and they essentially write a letter to those individuals who have been identified through that data. And they make it very clear that if you partake in crime, that you will be held accountable. But if you are wanting a different pathway, that they're willing to walk alongside them to that into that different pathway by providing job training, by providing employment, by providing addiction abuse treatment if they have addiction abuse challenges, mental health treatment if they have mental health challenges. They help them out with transportation, and they create this holistic, robust package of supports that help guide them into a different way of life. That letter is then given off to a community leader who specializes in violence intervention work. In our case, that would be a violence interrupter, very similar to Cure Violence that we have here in Wichita. And they hand deliver that letter to those individuals. And I think that makes a world of a difference. It's not the council member or the mayor coming to the front door. It's not WPD coming to the front door, but it's somebody who has been where they've been, somebody who has lived in a very similar community or maybe the same community as them. And it's somebody telling them face to face that there's a different way and that they're willing to guide them and walk with them along that path. Police Chief Sullivan and I are looking at how we pilot this particular project in District 1. And we want to make sure that when or if we do this, that we do it well, that there are robust resources available. And to Holly's point, that we are committed to the process, that the person may not commit to walking alongside us that first time we send someone to knock on that door, their second time or third time. But we hope eventually, after building the trust, maybe even just having a conversation, that they will walk into that opportunity. As it relates to public safety, as I always say, public safety is not just Wichita Police Department. It is also fire. It's also EMS. My number one concern as it relates to fire is that medical calls remain the top reason why fire comes out to our district. Uh, Today, I had a conversation with a healthcare provider, and we are trying to dive deeper into what does it look like to disaggregate the data provided by the Wichita Fire Department to understand what are the reasons or rationale behind why people are utilizing 911 or the fire department to come out for medical emergencies that are not directly connected to a fire. And what we want to do is we want to try to use that data that we collect from the individuals, and figuring out why they are calling 911 or fire for their medical issues. We want to try to figure out, is it a matter of connecting them to resources? Is it a matter of connecting them to medical insurance? Is it a matter of connecting them to education and helping them understand that there are healthcare providers that will serve them even if they don't have insurance? We don't know what the answers are just yet, but we are looking into it. And my goal is by the time my first term is up, that we will see a decrease in the amount of residents in District 1 who are relying on fire to come out and handle a medical emergency. Firefighters have signed up to walk and run into burning buildings to save lives. And when we have 10,000 calls a year, 10,000 calls a year in 2025 for medical calls coming into our neighborhood, that is not the best use of time for our firefighters, but it also signals that there's a larger problem. And so hopefully by beginning to peel back the layers of the onion, it might make us cry a little bit, but hopefully it gets us closer to a more solid solution. And as always, I know that we are going to need our state's help with this. And I know that a huge part of that conversation is Medicaid expansion and making sure that people have access to the medical resources that they need, healthcare resources that they need to feel confident reaching out to a primary care physician and or doctor so that they don't feel that they need to call 911 or fire. The last thing I will say is we recently had an en banc, and there's a major question about Who do we call when we see someone in a mental health crisis? For a very long time, the understanding was that you call 911 and police arrive on the scene. And then, as you might imagine, police arrive on the scene. And while many of them are crisis intervention trained, CIT, they are not mental health providers. So, in the en banc that we recently had, which is just a fancy word for a joint meeting between the county electeds and the city electeds, in that meeting, we had the opportunity to hear from the new leader of ComCare. She's been on the job for about a month. And there is a number that you can call when you see someone in a mental health crisis. That number is 988. And I want to continue to educate people that, 911's job, law enforcement's job is not to mitigate or handle mental health crises. In fact, I would argue that they are not the best people or best trained people to respond to those situations. And in many times when they arrive on the scene in that situation, it could turn out not good. But when we have trained mental health care providers who are able to arrive on the scene, maybe in collaboration with the police department, we are able to de-escalate matters a lot better. We're able to get people into the specific help that they need. And again, we're able to save taxpayers' dollars on the back end. So I have asked our city manager and county manager to create a one pager that indicates when someone should dial 911 and when someone should dial 988. And it will be really simple, really direct. It will lay out here are the signs and symptoms of that might tell you someone might be in a mental health crisis versus here are the signs and symptoms to look for that will tell you if someone is needing crime prevention help or legal help from WPD. Let's move into public works and infrastructure because again, when I talked about economic advancement when I got sworn in 6 months ago, I talked about wanting to invest in the things that a lot of people didn't deem were sexy but were necessary, like roads and filling potholes and addressing blight and making sure folks had access to clean water and making sure that neighborhood improvements were a priority for every single neighborhood in our community. So some of the major public works and infrastructure projects happening right now is one, 17th Street. There is reconstruction happening from Volusia to 17th Street. That is improving the roads, brand new roads, uh, upgraded stormwater drainage, protected bike lanes, pedestrian improvements for safety, and also reducing flooding when we have really bad flooding. That project is slated to be completed in November of 2026. We have heard from a few residents that the construction is an eyesore. And I try to tell people all the time, when you see the cones and you see the constructions, I get it. I drive that way at least 3 times a week. Um, it is annoying. Simply put, it is annoying. Um, and yet, that's what progress looks like. And one of the things that we're doing to make sure that we are accommodating the uh, concerns that residents have is that we are going to shift to finishing block by block to hopefully again, still make sure we're completing that project by November 26th. But we also are going to finish one block up at a time to make sure that, again, as we move closer to November, people can start to see that progress happening. More roadways or exits from the neighborhoods will start to open, and we're able to help reduce some of that pressure or strain that a lot of the residents might feel. If you live in Crown Heights and if you are particularly on Bleckley, you know that we have invested in a $36 million project to address the flooding there. We will slowly but surely be wrapping up phase one and moving into phase two. Um, we are currently going through the acquisition process. I'm not at liberty to talk about too many details in regards to that, but we are working with neighbors who are going to be impacted by some of that construction. for acquisition, and they are able to negotiate throughout that process if they feel that what they are being offered is not in alignment with what they feel the value of their property and or the process is going to be in terms of how cumbersome it might be to them. So please know that our goal is to, my goal is to get to 100% where we have a good relationship in negotiating and working with those property owners to make sure that they are being accommodated to the best of our ability. But we know that for many people, the flooding has been a problem in Bleckley for years. And my predecessor, one of the last things he did is wanted to make sure that he held true to his commitment to address it. So know that we also, as we look at moving into phase two, I have worked with Public Works to ensure that we have a conversation with residents who were impacted by phase one to figure out what went well, what didn't go well, and what can we do differently moving into phase two that we have learned from phase one. I believe residents simply want to be heard. And even when they're not fully satisfied with the process, giving them the space to share those learning moments with our staff and with me, it's critical so we don't repeat the same mistake twice. And so we are going to be doing that, and we're going to engage with the individuals from phase one. Hopefully, we'll learn something that will help us enhance the experience in phase two. And as we move into phase three, we'll go back to the residents who were impacted by phase two and ask them the same questions. What went well? What didn't go well? What would have made this experience a little better? Perhaps what we learned from that, we're not able to fix, but perhaps what we learned from that, we are able to address and fix. I've been appointed to WAMPO, the Wichita Area Metropolitan Organization Board, which oversees traffic and road infrastructure investments, not just for Wichita, but for the greater Wichita region. There is a safe streets to school routes process happening. There's also a public comment portion happening right now as well as it relates to the regional transit plan. And we are taking public comments right now. We will make sure that we follow up with everybody on this list with not just the recording, but a link to how to make public comment. It's the Transportation Improvement Program, TIP. It's for the fiscal year 2027 through fiscal year 2030. This is the draft plan that will really dictate 1.5 billion with a B dollars in federal, state, and local funding for about 147 projects. We want to hear from you where you want those dollars to go. And some of those ideas have been published in the initial draft of the plan, and we want to get your feedback. So again, we'll make sure we follow up with you on where to submit those. Every month at a workshop, we get an update on our water treatment plant. You all know that there have been some challenges with the water treatment plant, and Wichita Water Partners has come forward every single month, I believe, for the past 3 months to provide an update. I'm happy to share that the updates have been promising as it relates to addressing some of the infrastructure challenges and requesting the change orders to ensure that we are making the necessary improvements. Please keep in mind, we will not take full ownership and responsibility of this water treatment plant until this project is fully functional. And we will recoup any cost that we have overspent because of some of these change orders that have occurred or some of the malfunctions that have occurred. We also are looking at the aquifer storage and recovery phase. So that way, when there is a lot of water from that's happening during the rainy seasons, that we're able to recover that water. And then also, I want to give a huge shout out to my colleague, Council Member Becky Tuttle, as well as Gary Jansen from Public Works, who the water reuse program, which is a model for not just the state of Kansas. I would argue there are folks from all over the country reaching out to the city of Wichita to ask us about our water reuse program. A lot of people would call it toilet to tap. We don't like to call it toilet to tap. So we're calling it the water reuse program, which is essentially how to be more efficient with recycling our water and making it usable for things. And then finally, again, we're addressing the illegal dumping situations that are happening almost every week in District 1. I'm becoming increasingly frustrated, but I'm really grateful for um, MABCD and the folks like Chris Labrum who are very responsive to the request. I will tell you all the CSEE Click Fix app is an app that you can use to, if you see a pothole, if you see illegal dumping, if you see a sidewalk that needs repair, if you see tree concerns that look like it might be a dangerous situation, please use the See Click Fix app to report those things. That goes into our portal. That then information routes right over to Public Works, and they're able to get it over to the necessary people to address those problems. Those neighborhood improvements are critical for District 1. We know that the easiest thing to bring hope and help to people is simply addressing a lot of those things. Um, let's very briefly run through some of the major council actions that have happened. And again, a lot has been happening. So if you do not hear something that you're like, man, I really wish Joseph would have brought this up, that doesn't mean I don't care about it. It just means I'm trying to condense this and make this concise. Um, Major council actions that have been taken from January to June. One of the things that I really felt passionate about is making sure that we establish youth votes or youth seats on all of our district advisory boards. So what we did is we voted to make it required that every district advisory board would have a youth seat, ages 14 to 18. What I love most about this is the young people who are serving in these spaces not only could potentially get high school credit for this, but it also exposes them to the realities of what local government is all about, and it gives our young people a pulse on the concerns in our community. Maybe they're not always looking through things through the vantage point of some of us, but being able to have that diverse perspective, both through their lived experiences, but our lived experiences gives them the opportunity to have a more holistic understanding of what it means to live in a community and understand the challenges and opportunities for growth for everybody and not just their particular population. But it does the same thing for us too. I'm amazed at um, how the next generation pushes me to even see the world through a different lens. And I'm excited that all of my colleagues are going to have that experience too. And so that is in effect now. District 1 has a young person on our board already. Prior to this ordinance change, Kaylin, was not able to vote. She had to sit there and listen to people make decisions about her neighborhood that she lived in. And she showed up to just about every meeting. I can't recall too many meetings that she missed, but she was engaged in I felt it was unfortunate that she wasn't able to make a recommending decision to her council member on the decisions that were being made in her district. So that has now changed. In regards to public safety, again, major council actions, you all may have heard that 20 out of the 22 fire stations in our city had to undergo mold remediation. That staffing was also a major issue as we look at building out Fire Station 23, our first brand new fire station since 2009. Um, while we have the infrastructure, we need to make sure we have the staffing available. And so we just recently approved the fire chief to move forward with a SAFER grant, which would allow for funding from a grant to pay for the operations of that fire station for 3 years, recognizing that we also need to be prepared to build in that cost beyond that 3 years and not always rely on grants. But also as it relates to facilities, moving forward, I am a major proponent that we should not uh, build or budget to build any new facilities without accounting for the cost that it would take to operate that facility. I think we can see by virtue of our fire stations, but I will also tell you we are now running into the same issue with our Wichita public libraries. that we have built these libraries and we have expanded many of them, but we did not update the staffing. And so now we're running into an issue where you have the infrastructure, but you don't have the operation side to be able to operate the infrastructure during normal hours or at hours in which people could consistently utilize these buildings. So that's something that we're looking at, making sure moving forward that as departments come forward and ask for CIP dollars or infrastructure investment, that we are accounting for the operations too. You all probably have heard that we have strengthened our nuisance property enforcement tools, increasing fines and holding people accountable for violators of those nuisance enforcements. And then we also had a very robust but healthy conversation, both on the robotic dog for Wichita Police Department, which I voted against. It did end up passing, so our Wichita Police Department did receive one robotic dog that will go into bomb squad situations. But also, I feel it's really important to balance public safety and trust. And that particular item wasn't in the CIP request until 2027. So it's not that I didn't want to support WPD and giving them that robotic dog. I just felt after coming off of a failed sales tax and having many urgent issues to include addressing the issue of our unhoused neighbors, I did not think it was the right time to invest in a robotic dog. However, the will of the body was to approve it. I accept the will of the body, and WPD is now utilizing that one robotic dog to collect data to show us the effectiveness of the robotic dog and the impact that it has. Um, so I just wanted to share that with you as well. And then finally, before I open up for any questions that you all might have, housing and economic development, as you all might imagine, remains a major, major topic in this city. We are in a crisis. There's no easy way to put this. Our unhoused neighbor population is growing. The Alice report provided by United Way shows not only are our unhoused neighbor populations growing, there are more people entering into homelessness um, that are seniors than we've seen in the past. And that weighs very heavy on my heart. And so, as prices continue to rise across the country, and Wichita's not exempt from that, we've really got to think about how we make a major dent in this challenge. I do believe that we solve homelessness through affordable housing, but that's not the only way. We have to also be willing to solve homelessness by ensuring that we address mental health challenges, that we address drug addiction challenges, that we also, outside of that, recognize that not every unhoused person fits the profile of someone who has a mental health challenge or a drug addiction challenge, but maybe they just need case management and wraparound supports to guide them through how to budget, how to find employment, how to do some of the basic life skills, and to be consistent at doing those life skills well so that they don't fall back into a state of homelessness once they move from shelter to housing. I believe we also need more investment in transitional housing, which, given all of this, is why at the Nehemiah Assembly meeting earlier this year, hosted by Justice Together, I committed, along with two other colleagues, gave a firm commitment to bring forth another sales tax in 2027 that would focus strictly on homelessness and housing. Now, what that fund would do is it would create an affordable housing trust fund, which would give us the opportunity to pump more dollars in existing programs. Those existing programs are home ownership 80 programs that will help with down payment assistance for low income folks who want to own their home but need help taking care of that down payment assistance. Emergency rental assistance. So folks who are renting and are finding that they're having a bad month and they're one paycheck away from being homeless, helping make sure that we can, you know, fill that gap because it's cheaper to prevent someone from going into homelessness than it is to shelter them and then take them through the cycle of getting them back into permanent housing. But I also believe that some of those dollars need to be invested in our social service nonprofit agencies who do incredible work and are experts in the work that they do. And I also have been very clear that I think there needs to be a percentage of set aside dollars from the sales tax that go back into investing in communities that have been neglected, like 67214, which were heavily redlined, and also the south side of Wichita that have been heavily neglected in the past. I think those communities deserve investment in the form of housing. And I believe that we owe it to every part of our district to ensure that they have equitable investment in housing as well. Finally, what I'll say is I also want to slow down the suburban sprawl. Basically, that is building Wichita and continue to move outwards. I think we are running into a major issue where we see a lot of folks building more and more on the outskirts of Wichita. And what I believe that is doing is not only is it reducing density and infill, which I'm a major fan of, I think it's also adding additional costs to the city that we can't necessarily afford right now. As you continue to build housing on the outskirts of the core, you also have to accommodate for public services. And as you all might know, as you see us rolling back how many times we can do a neighborhood cleanup, as you see us rolling back how many times we can do street sweeping, as you see us rolling back on how frequently we can come out to illegal dumping sites and clean them up, or addressing deferred maintenance on our roads and our sidewalks. Um, that doesn't help when we are building outside of the urban core at a rate that is just not sustainable right now. And so I really am interested in looking at our financing tools that come out of our economic development office. That's your TIFs, your IRBs, your CIDs. How do we have a conversation about ensuring that those financing tools are available, but the max incentives that a developer or an agent can get for those are determined based on a rubric of kind of where they're developing, the amount of set asides they are willing to put into housing development for low income and affordable housing and workforce housing, but also making sure that they align with infill and density to ensure that we're able to reduce any additional costs that we may incur later on when we have to start having conversations about needing more fire stations, more police stations, more public services that will come at an additional cost. That's all that I have for you all at a very high level as it relates to my 6 month update. I appreciate your support. It's been a journey, and I'm really excited about being here and serving you. If there are events that you all want me to be at, please reach out. I'm learning that while the expectation of this role is 30 hours a week, there is not in my mind any way I believe a council member can be effective and really be a listening ear to the people they're serving doing only 30 hours a week. So I have decided that about 25 hours on top of that 30 hours is my gift back to Wichita and the district that I love. And I think at some point, though, the city will need to have a conversation about equity in both the expectation of how many hours a council member is expected to serve and a reasonable livable wage that a council member should make so that way they are not having to work supplemental jobs to make up for their income. Because I will tell you, that is exactly what I am doing right now. And I'm willing to do it, but I don't think it should have to be a requirement if you want to serve your community. So with that, I'm going to open up for any questions. And Natalie, I see your hand raised first.
Yes. Hey, first, thank you for all your hard work. I think you just do a phenomenal job of showing up, explaining, listening. So really appreciate you.
Thank you.
So I was going to ask, and I think I found the answer, but the 29th and Grove, um, there was a permit. So I went to the website. It's an excellent website, Action for 29th and Grove. I'll
Mhm.
put it in the the link there. But the when I went to the community thing, they talked about almost like this dialysis for the ground. And I think that's what this permit has been issued for in May. And I just wanted to find out. It's the underground injection control permit.
Yes, it was. And it was particularly to test the soil and the ground uh, water. And they also did some treatments in particular homes, testing the air quality of folks within the plume as well.
Okay, good. And then so with the recent rains that we had, there has been some flooding, and I thought that MABCD used to have some like money for household projects or repairs for people. And I was trying to Google, like just use the city of Wichita search engine,
Mhm.
and I know maybe the money's gone by now, but do you remember what that could be? It's for my nephew who had some flooding and
Yeah, so was it a program that addressed damage as a result of flooding?
well, I thought it was actually more like it would just help with any household improvement, but I wondered if he would qualify with this. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
I'm happy to connect you to, it sounds like that might be a housing thing.
Okay.
Um, I will tell you this, the qualifications to get some of our housing benefits are very tight.
Hmm.
And that is partially because the federal government requires us to have those very strict regulations. But I can look into MABCD to see if they have any funding in regards to that. It might be their building and construction fund, but I can look into that.
Hey, thanks. And no sweat. I'll keep searching as well. So, thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
of course. I appreciate you. Thanks for being here.
Mhm.
Steve, how's it going?
It's going good. I want to echo what Natalie said. Joseph, you're one of the hardest working
Thank
council
you.
persons I have ever met in the 50 some years I've lived in this community. Um,
Thanks, Steve. I
I
appreciate that.
had a couple questions, and we're not going to solve all of the world's problems in this short little meeting, but I'm going to go back to the beginning. Who or what funds the focus deterrence effort? Where does that money come from? That's one question.
Yep.
Do you want to answer all these as we go, or you want me to just lay out the questions for you?
I will answer this one immediately because I know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
Uh, so in regards to the focus deterrence model, the data is provided through the Real-Time Crime Center. And multiple police agencies across the country have what they call the Real-Time Crime Center to see that data. But in Baltimore, Maryland, the initiative is funded through both their city and their health department because they deem gun violence as a health crisis. And so they pull their money together and fund a violence interrupters program that essentially has people boots on the ground and intervening before violence takes place using that data provided by the Real Time Crime Center in their community.
Okay. Next question regarding the police and fire calls. The amount of fire department calls. So
Mhm.
why are first responders the firefighters and not just the EMS paramedics? What kind of intake data is 911 doing that could help funnel that more appropriately?
Our firefighters are EMT certified as well. And so that's why they are able to go out to those calls.
Right, but if they need to be reserved for actual fire calls, I mean, why can we not ascertain who the best professional person is to send on those calls if we're getting 10,000 plus
hmm
fire?
EMS, I think the biggest problem is that EMS is a county service. And since our firefighters are also EMT or EMS certified as well, when it's within Wichita city limits, they are the ones who respond to those calls.
Okay, so then I say, isn't that kind of what happens now? Is they get out there, and as soon as they have it ascertained that it's mainly a medical emergency and not a fire emergency, don't most of them back off fairly quickly?
Yes.
Do we have stats that say, how long they're on those calls?
That's a good question. We do, and I don't know them off the top of my head, but we do have that data.
Okay. Next, this is a bigger picture question, maybe just for some research, but um, we're talking about the flooding on Bleckley. I used to live over on Glendale, which is one street over, and you're talking about the donut effect and people moving further out. Well, Kansas is flat. What are they going to do first? It's easier to build out than to build up,
Yep.
and so all of these questions play into that. So, what's the bigger picture on overall city infrastructure design? Because when I'm looking at a street like 17th and they're doing all that work, that's because they're updating infrastructure that some could say wasn't built correctly in the first place, or some could say technology and modern building methods and everything else had done what everything else does, which is evolve and improve and everything else. So maybe is there a better way to have some workshop time that says what is a larger holistic way we can manage that donut effect and kind of balance out the cost to build out versus the cost to build up, and find out how we can make that a little more palpable for developers or builders or people who are looking to build affordable housing and that kind of thing, because developers are going to go where the most bang for the buck is, and that's why they're moving out.
Yep, you hit the nail right on the head, Steve. I couldn't have said it any better. We have asked the city manager to put that specific topic on a workshop. There's a couple things also happening connected to this. Um, in the city manager's recommended budget to city council for the city manager's office, he is recommending a new position, which would be the director of economic development. The reason why I point this out and say it's important is because traditionally, we've had two assistant city managers. One oversees one area of City Hall, and Troy Anderson, formerly who was assistant city manager, part of his area was EcoDevo. And so he did the EcoDevo work. He did the recruitment for EcoDevo alongside Greater Wichita Partnership and managed the tools and financing and incentive package. And that's a lot of work. And so when it comes to casting the vision, as to your point about, well, what kind of city does Wichita want to be as it relates to this topic? Um, it just wasn't sustainable and manageable. So what the city manager has recommended, and I am supportive of this and have spoken with Greater Wichita Partnership as well, who is the EcoDevo arm of the city who we rely on a lot, parsing the roles of assistant city manager and a director of economic development now is going to allow that director of economic development to focus on existing small businesses, existing individuals or agents who are using our financing tools, holding them accountable, making sure they're doing what they need to do, helping those small businesses scale and grow, while also recruiting new business. And it's going to allow that assistant city manager to cast that vision of what do we want to be and what do we want to look like in terms of infrastructure, and what are the incentives that should go along with helping us align with that vision as developers come forward and ask for support from the city in that way.
Okay, lastly, you talked about the funding for the ongoing maintenance and the managing on the facilities, when they build a new building or a new library or a new fire station or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Right on there. That seems surprising to me that we have not had that in place forever. I mean, I'm a business owner. I'm not going to go out and build a new business if I don't have any idea how I'm going to staff it or develop it. Or, I mean, that doesn't make any sense from a realistic standpoint. I mean, who's in charge of that?
Yeah, and the problem is that, let me be clear, you have had some folks doing it. The problem is that it's not been consistent across the board, right? And so um, now there's a true appetite of being consistent across the board. And I will give the mayor, I don't agree with the mayor on everything. It's no surprise there for folks who follow along. But to her credit, this is something that she has been very vocal about. And I agree with her that it should be a consistent standard across the board that whenever we are building Anything new. Heck, I would even argue, even if we are renovating for expansion, that we are building not just for today, but 5 years from today, 10 years from today. And then we are also factoring in the operation costs because it is a cost that we have to think about. It makes no sense to build a building if you don't have the people to operate it.
All right, that's all I got. Thanks for keeping the faith, Joseph.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you so much. Any other questions from you all? And thanks for the kudos in the chat, Holly. I appreciate it. I'm lucky I get to wake up every morning, even on the tough days, and I get to do what I love, and that's helping people. And my favorite emails are when I can help somebody doing something super simple like responding to an email or making sure that we get the illegal dumping cleaned up. So, um, it makes me very happy that Mary is highly encouraged by our meeting as well. So, thank you. And to that point, Holly, for anybody on this call, I had Holly invited me out to her neighborhood to come and meet with one of her neighbors, and I was happy to do it. We met in um, the home of one of her neighbors, and we just talked about some of the challenges that her neighbor had experienced throughout her time and what would bring a level of hope and help back um, to her for her to believe that local government can work for her too. So know that that opportunity is not exclusive to Holly. It's open to you all as well. If you all run into people who are just feeling fed up with City Hall and disappointed, say, hey, maybe you should reach out to Councilmember Shepard. He probably can't solve everything, but he's willing to listen, as well as our CSR Zamaria. So